No, this takes a minute to zero. With a real boxer, a real world champion boxer, that the only other time he was in for the fans to get mad with that was against Fury's, Tommy Fury, but it wasn't that level, obviously, and all the size things you just rightfully pointed out. But he would have been in there with, I mean, it seemed crazy.
Gervonta Tank Davis has stunned fans with his shocking new physique ahead of his showdown with Jake Paul. Known for his explosive power and compact frame, Davis has taken his training to another level, bulking up with muscle mass that's got the boxing world buzzing. Recent gym footage shows a noticeably thicker, more intimidating version of Tank, leading many to speculate he's preparing to meet Paul's size and strength head-on.
We were yelling so much about him fighting someone, fight somebody your size. His next opponent is, by far, the most credentialed guy ever fought actively in his prime. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. He fights at 135 pounds.
In the build-up to his showdown with Jake Paul, Gervonta Tank Davis has apparently turned his training regimen into a war on weakness, mixing high-intensity strength work, heavy sparring, and relentless conditioning to support his unusually large size gain. Footage and reports indicate he's integrating heavier resistance training, especially compound lifts, to build core and upper body bulk, while still fitting in his usual speed and footwork drills to preserve agility. Meanwhile, sparring sessions reportedly include working with larger, more physical partners, even those resembling heavyweights, to acclimate his body to handling bigger opponents.
Yeah, this Santa Cruz out here to get you. You can't let it burn, baby, let it burn. Mind over matter, son, mind over matter.
This is the blues on.
Ain't nobody doing no shit like this. Come in the desert. Nigga trying to stay away from the desert, he come in the desert.
When the night is cold and low.
Oh, see.
Light camera action.
And fighting for light action. Camera.
Come on, Tank. Come on, Tank. Work him out. Work him out, Tank. Dig down in there. Dig down in there.
10 seconds.
Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Remember with that gun on it? They got that gun on that tank. They go, time.
When the night is cold and low.
He ain't gonna keep you here late tonight. Good job.
It's been hard being away from my daughter. She actually here, she sleep. Just being away from her, it was a little touchy, but I know when I'm up against, I know that I got pay-per-view, I know I'm fighting a tough opponent, so really I know how to lock in, I know how to shy away from everything, I know how to, I know how to fool around.
I said 10, huh?
Don't do that. I can't go on TV looking like that.
However, Paul is a much heavier fighter by nature, and the rules for their fight stipulate a 195-pound maximum weight and the use of 12-ounce gloves for both fighters. Davis, who usually fights at around 135 pounds, is being asked to bridge a chasm of size and strength. That disparity has raised serious eyebrows. Critics argue that piling on mass could blunt Davis's trademark speed and explosiveness, the very tools that have made him such a dangerous fighter.
Jake Paul, Tank Davis fight got moved to Miami.
I think Jake wins.
Jake's just so big, dude.
I think Jake wins.
This is different because it's similar. It's similar to Logan versus Mayweather, but Jake Paul now obviously is way more advanced than where Logan was at that moment in time.
I mean,
Gervonta
it's
is
just
fucking sick.
I mean, yeah, no, but dude,
Did you
Jake,
ever watch his highlights?
Jake can
He's
crack,
nasty,
man.
bro.
He's so sick.
He's
I love
nasty.
that guy, bro.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skill, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
UFC boss Dana White didn't mince words when asked about a Paul versus Davis fight. He argued that hardly anyone is actually hyped for it, but conceded that the matchup might still do some good for Tank. After all, Davis has weathered a stretch of negative headlines and waning momentum beyond the ring, making him vulnerable. Paul's financial offer, coming at this low point, gives Davis a chance to recapture attention and cash in. White noted that while many mock the bout's legitimacy, it could provide Davis with exposure and revenue just when he could use both the most. He believes Jake Paul's height, reach, and brute strength would allow him to pressure Tank relentlessly, using his natural frame to lean in, impose clinches, and smother Davis's offense. White concedes that Davis is a powerful technical boxer, but argues that when you bring someone accustomed to lighter opponents into Paul's physical realm, those advantages may vanish. Ultimately, White frames the potential outcome less as a boxing contest and more as a test of whether Davis can endure and overcome the sheer physical dominance Paul would bring into the ring.
Is picking Jake Paul to beat Gervonta Davis. This is not a fight that I'm excited for at all. I would rather have Gervonta Davis fighting in a real boxing match against the likes of Lamont Roach, Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, Emmanuel Navarrete, anybody that is in the 135-pound division and around. That's where I want to see Gervonta Davis fight. However, we live in a world where everybody is trying to do things as big as possible. And the biggest fights possible right now, unfortunately for the sport of boxing, is an exhibition fight between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. So I do like it for this reason, though. I like it because it is allowing Gervonta Davis to have a fight that is going to be big and that the mainstream media is going to have to cover, the mainstream media outside the world of boxing. Gervonta Davis has been, without a doubt, blocked, having venues blocked, having fighters, having other promoters paying fighters away to go different directions from Gervonta Davis. So Gervonta Davis was in a bit of a hole. And he gets an opportunity to fight Jake Paul for $200 million or whatever. I don't mind it at all. As long as Gervonta Davis comes back to the world of boxing after he gets done with this, hey man, you got your money, no worries. But you gotta love Dana White having the audacity to pick Jake Paul in this fight and says something to the effect that, hey, he was talking to Logan Paul and said, hey, when you were fighting Floyd, you know, there was this, you're a gigantic guy, big size difference. There was a time when Floyd Mayweather Jr. had an overhand right that landed flush on Logan Paul.
Bare-knuckle fighter and former UFC star Mike Perry didn't hold back when sharing his thoughts on the rumored Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul matchup. Perry criticized Davis for taking what he called a cash grab fight instead of chasing true boxing challenges, questioning whether Tank still has the same fire and hunger that made him a world champion. According to Perry, Davis choosing to face a YouTuber-turned boxer shows he's more focused on fame and money than on cementing his legacy in the sport. Perry even suggested that Jake Paul's work ethic and drive might surpass Davis's at this stage. His comments struck a nerve with fans, reigniting debate about where Davis's motivation really lies.
Jake is big. Tank has a lot of skill, but I don't think he's the same Tank that we saw the most incredible knockouts. We saw him, I mean, Lamont Roach performed great. They went to draw, and, you know, I just don't know. And Tank walked away. I don't know if he loves it enough to beat a guy who outweighs him by 80 to 100 pounds.
During the face-off with Jake Paul, Gervonta Davis appeared noticeably uneasy, a rare sight for the usually confident knockout artist. Observers pointed out his tense body language, limited eye contact, and forced composure, suggesting that the significant size difference between the two fighters may have gotten into his head. Standing across from the much larger Jake Paul, Davis seemed to recognize the physical challenge ahead. While some fans believe he was simply staying calm and focused, others took his demeanor as a sign of doubt.
Tank looked very uncomfortable facing off. He just did. I've seen other face-off this Tank done. He gets in their face and they're intense and he looks good. He looked very meager up there. You've had 8 fights and you're gonna go tangle with Tank Davis. And the story instantly comes out. Jake is so much bigger. There is such a compliment to Jake within that insult. It is meant to be an insult. It is meant to take away from a potentially glorious moment for Jake. But where the compliment comes is it means the public believes he's gonna win. That's what it means.
Teddy Atlas weighed in on the face-off between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis, emphasizing the glaring size difference between the two. The veteran boxing analyst joked that Tank is so much smaller than Jake, he'd need a ladder just to reach his chin. While Atlas acknowledged that disparities in skill and style are normal in boxing, he argued that the physical gap here is far beyond reasonable limits. Drawing a comparison to Canelo Alvarez potentially moving up to fight Terence Crawford, Atlas noted that Crawford was never as undersized as Davis is against Paul. In his view, Tank's lack of reach and natural size makes this matchup look severely unbalanced. More spectacle than sport right from the outset.
Things, right? They should also have like the size of the ring, the size of the glove, all that stuff. Particulars should be in the contract, but I would probably look for one thing that is not the common thing to have in a contract if I'm Tank. A ladder. A ladder. Can I get a ladder? Somebody? You know what I mean? Hey, look, if he hits him on the chin the way he can punch, Jake might be doing a dance. You know what I mean? Not voluntarily either. But we'll get into that more later. The thing that I'm talking about right here is what you said. It was stark. The size difference was really, you couldn't ignore it. We understand the talent difference, the experience difference. We understand all of that. But the size, the pure, and we understand small guys can beat big guys. We just saw Crawford do it to Canelo, but you know, a little different. The size difference was, I mean, it was eye-catching, jaw-dropping. And it made me think, and I'm going to ask Richie, our man here who's doing all the taping, who does such a marvelous job. I'm going to ask him, because I know he's an expert in this area, but it reminded me of one of the Rocky movies where they had the face, where they did the wrestling thing with Rocky and Hulk Hogan, a.k.a. Thunderlips. He was Thunderlips back there. And I thought I had it right, and it was confirmed to me. It's Rocky 3.
Shakur Stevenson didn't mince words when asked about the rumored Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight, calling it a terrible matchup for the sport. The undefeated champion argued that the fight makes little sense competitively and only serves as a money grab rather than a true test of skill. Stevenson emphasized that the extreme size difference between the two men turns the event into more of a spectacle than a legitimate boxing contest.
Maybe he'll fight Jake Paul instead. What do you think of that?
I think that's terrible.
Why?
I mean, I get it, because at the end of the day, it's the money business, and you want to make the most money, but from what I'm hearing, he can make more money in a fight with me, and if that's the case, why not fight me?
Sure. Do you think he beats Jake Paul?
Do I think he beats Jake? Yeah. I mean,
there's a huge size advantage, though.
It is, but I think Tank got the skills to make sure he come out on top.
Do you think that Jake has gone better?
Yeah, I think actually Jake got tremendously better from the time frame that he started till now. And in the right situation, I also could see him become a world champion.
Really?
Yeah.
Leonard Ellerbe explained Tank has been through many personal challenges and did not want to take on additional stress at that time. This lack of motivation is why the fight never happened, even though fans expected it. Ellerbe suggests that Tank was focusing more on managing his personal life than proving himself in the ring, and that stepping away from Roach was a way to avoid unnecessary pressure.
Leonard Ellerbe said, to tell you the truth, Gervonta Davis couldn't get up for Lamont Roach. And what does that mean? It means that he could not get inspired, that he was not motivated to fight Lamont Roach, that his mind was not in a place where it was like, yeah, okay, let's get it. And he was going to war with Lamont Roach. He was going through the motions with Lamont Roach during the training camp and could never really get himself motivated to really give the best of himself against Lamont Roach. And that probably affected him during training and during the fight. And that is something that can happen, especially if you really look back on what happened with the Lamont Roach fight and all of the ups and downs about that fight being made. Because first, if you recall, he wasn't supposed to be fighting Lamont Roach. The person he was supposed to be fighting was Vasily Lomachenko. You know, the guy that everybody says that he doesn't want to fight, that he didn't want to fight. Gervonta Davis was up and prepared to fight Vasily Lomachenko.
Jake Paul's actions in boxing often appear driven more by promotion than pure competition. Rather than chasing rankings or legitimate title contention, Paul strategically selects opponents who create viral moments and financial buzz. His matchups, from retired MMA fighters to undersized boxers like Gervonta Davis, generate headlines and social media engagement, keeping his brand in the spotlight. By blending entertainment with sport, Jake blurs the line between spectacle and competition, ensuring maximum viewership regardless of the matchup's fairness. One of the most debated aspects of the proposed matchup between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis centers on the glaring difference in their size and physical attributes. Jake Paul, who has competed against larger opponents and naturally carries far more weight, enters the discussion with a clear edge in height, reach, and overall frame. In contrast, Gervonta Davis is a 5'5" fighter who typically competes around 130 pounds, excelling in divisions where his explosiveness and punching power have made him a feared presence.
Holy shit, Jake Paul versus Tank Davis is actually happening. What the f is going on? I guess Tank is going broke because that's the only justifiable reason you ruin your legacy against a guy like Jake Paul. And yes, I do think Jake Paul is going to win. Tank Davis is a much better boxer and has crazy power, but he's 5'5", 130. That power is not going to carry over against someone who is 6'1", 210. And it's not like Jake is bad. Yes, his fights are boring. He says he's going to step in the ring and sleep his opponents, but the only people who end up sleeping are the audience. Mike Tyson fight. But at the end of the day, he's a big guy with power who's training boxing full time, and he has beaten some legitimate competition. Woodley, Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva, Mike Perry had a competitive fight with Tommy Fury. But it's crazy how particular Jake has to be when selecting his opponents. They have to have enough clout to be interesting, enough skill to be taken seriously as a threat, but at the same time have clear weaknesses and disadvantages that Jake and his team can exploit to win. Now that he's fighting an elite boxer, he has to fight someone 7 weight classes down. I mean, Tank could win if he makes Jake do a very aggressive weight cut, but I just don't see that happening. I got Jake by 3rd round TKO. He should put me on the co-main event and allow me to fight Francis Ngannou. That would be an easy first round knockout for myself.
MMA veteran Nate Diaz completely brushed off the upcoming Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight, saying he had no interest in even predicting the outcome. According to Diaz, the matchup isn't a real sporting contest, but a spectacle built solely for pay-per-view money. He criticized modern boxing for drifting too far toward these staged, profit-driven events, arguing that they undermine the sport's integrity and tradition. Diaz insisted that fights like this prioritize entertainment over athletic competition, making it impossible for him to take them seriously.
I gotta ask you, Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. Does Davis have a chance?
Gervonta is a great boxer, but he ain't gonna do.
So you got Jake Paul by knockout, or?
No, I don't got anybody, but I don't think.
He's just too small.
It just. I don't want to beat up somebody that small. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying?
What do you think of the fight?
I don't want to lose to somebody else. There's no point in the fight. It's a great fight, actually. I'm not hating on the fight, but I think my thoughts on it is let's watch and see what happens.
Ryan Garcia said that boxing's turning into WWE.
Yeah,
with that type of matchup. What do you agree? Last thing, White House card, like he said, you want Conor McGregor?
Yeah, but the whole thing's on WWE, so
right.
It's like, at least that's happening and it's getting something to talk about, something to watch, and I'm looking forward to that fight actually.
Michael Bisping raises serious concerns about Jake Paul's decision to face Gervonta Davis under such extreme weight differences. He points out that Jake is preparing to fight someone who is nearly 100 pounds lighter than him, which goes against the natural balance of the sport. Bisping recalls how the fight with Mike Tyson already seemed questionable, as Tyson is 58 years old and long retired. Fans and analysts alike have expressed frustration over the way unusual fights dominate headlines in recent years. The proposed matchup between Jake Paul and Davis has been held up as an example of this worrying trend. Instead of focusing on meaningful contests that crown new champions or settle rivalries, promoters increasingly push spectacles that blur the lines between sport and entertainment.
Heavier. That is at least 65 pounds heavier than you. That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, oh, I just beat the baddest man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing? What don't you understand about this? If you want respect from your peers, if you want everyone on the planet to look at you and take you seriously and give you credit as a boxer, you have to take on challenges that are real. You have to go up against someone that keeps you up at night, against someone that gets you out of bed in the morning to go for a run because the fear of them beating you down is real. Not going up against someone that is so small. If you were to go up to this guy in a bar and try and start a fight with them, people would look at you and say one word, whoa, 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 stop being such a bully. Leave him alone. You are way bigger than this guy. And that's clearly what we have here. It is ridiculous. When you look at the tail of the tape, Gervonta Tank Davis, granted, a very, very skilled boxer, a world champion. He's had some great wins. He's had a tremendous career. He's got 28 knockouts on his record. I'm just looking at the tail of the tape here. 30 years old, Jake Paul, 28. Gervonta Davis is 5'5" tall, whereas Jake Paul is 6'1". I would never dream on picking on a guy that is 5'5" tall. Granted, there's some tough guys out there that are 5'5", okay? They're smaller guys, you know, but for 5'5", they'll pack a good punch. Typically, they're mixed martial artists or boxers, yeah.
Do you see this matchup as an exciting crossover event or just another publicity stunt that hurts boxing's credibility? Drop your thoughts in the comments.